Hey, my friends, it's Coach Powers here, and today I want to talk about setbacks. And, well, namely, what is a setback, right? I think everybody has some different definitions of this thing. But a setback, generally, in the way that I hear it, means someone who has had usually someone that's already been off of benzos, right? And they're maybe doing a little bit well, or maybe they could be thriving, in fact. And then suddenly, bam, they hit a bump in the road, and all their symptoms come back. And many times people say, I feel like I'm back in acute, right? And so setbacks has sort of become this word that seems to mean that in some way it's like you've blown up everything you've built, right? Like all these neurons and these receptors have somehow overnight or in a very short period of time just crumbled like a house of cards. They've just come down. And I think that's something that we really need to explore deeper and maybe even push back against and ask ourselves, is that really what's happening? Is that what we're envisioning happening? When we say the word setback, what do we mean? Is a setback a bump in the road? Is it what I like to call a flare-up? Or is it really a setback, meaning something has gone wrong? We've gone backwards. And I say this, guys, if you're healing, you've not gone backwards. Things might have gone up. Things flare up. And that's why I think the term flare-up is such a better term than setback. Because setback suggests that we are actually going backwards. Now, I get it. In some level, this is kind of a semantic, right? It's a kind of a semantic issue because, okay, Dave, flare up, same thing. I'm set back. I was moving forward, and now I have a setback. Okay. Again, how are you defining a setback, right? Are you going backwards? To me, going backwards means, in terms of benzo recovery, that your receptors have been healing. And again, guys, my opinion on this. It's not just about receptors healing. You've become resilient. You've changed your diet. You've removed toxic people. You've been working hard. You've been exercising. You've been doing exposure therapy, and you've been mastering mindfulness, relaxation, and cognitive behavioral therapy, and dialectical behavioral therapy, and acceptance commitment therapy, and right. You're doing all these things like. Those don't just erase. You didn't go backwards. You didn't undo all of that, right? So to me, to say setback is like sort of to just erase all the progress we've made. And it has such a loaded connotation, again, because setback is like, we built this house and then a storm came by and just crumbled it down. And oh my God, we have to rebuild it again. I have to do all this again, right? And it's so defeating. But instead, if you look at it like almost like arthritis, in a healing process, that this thing gets inflamed, and it swells up, and then we just have to sort of wait for it to come back down, right? So I think there are no setbacks, right? As long as you're 1 day off of benzos, 2 days off of benzos, 3 days off of benzos, as long as you're moving forward, you're not going backwards. Right? And you really need to hear that because, again, the idea of going backwards is so damn defeating. And another thing it does is it really scratches that trauma response. So now you're going, oh my God, I'm going to get worse. I'm going to get worse. And in my experience, guys, and believe me, with thousands of people at this point, that's what really helps the wheels come off is that panic, that initial tinge of a panic of going, oh no, I'm going back. I've often said it's like getting out of Alcatraz, a prison, the world's worst prison for a crime you didn't even commit. And you're finally just starting to let your guard down. You're finally just, you're at a park playing one day with your children, and then the guards show back up with the handcuffs, And it's really what it feels like. It's like, oh no, I'm getting dragged back to prison. And just that fear is enough to sort of, to reactivate that old pathway in the brain that we've created inevitably, that kind of stems from the limbic system to the fear, which is, I'm never getting out of this. I'm never going to get out of this. And even when you think you're out, it pulls you back in, right? But it's not true. You're not having a setback. right? Unless you want to redefine setback and say, well, setback, I mean setback the same way as a flare-up, meaning like if I was healing my leg and a broken leg and I kind of twisted it a little bit, maybe I aggravated some things there and now it's going to take a little longer to heal. Okay, maybe there's an argument there, but you're not going backwards, right? You're not undoing receptors, guys. You're not back on the chemical. There's nothing going back. All right. So I want to hammer that. Maybe hammered it too much, but so maybe we should adopt this term, flare up. I'm having a flare up. I'm inflamed right now. I'm stressed. My stress levels have gone up, and that's such a better term too, because what goes up can come back down. And that's what I tell my clients. What goes up comes back down. Remember that. You're not at a setback. You're in a flare-up. What goes up will come back down. Breathe, right? And don't panic. Don't give in to the panic, because so much of this recovery process is learning to do things differently than what we've always done. We've always fallen apart before. We've always had that when things, started to get rough, when we seen that stress rising, we handled it differently. We crawled back in bed. We isolated, we avoided, we ruminated, we got back on the forums, or we started researching our conditions, and, we spiraled. And part of recovery from benzos isn't just waiting out the storm of the chemical, the chemical healing receptor process. It's us becoming new. It's us learning how to respawn versus then react, right? So what happens when you're triggered? What happens when you're really stressed out? What happens when the stress keeps rising? Can you start to see the stress rising? Can you learn how to sort of navigate the weather of your brain, right? Like, this is the stuff that really is going to drive you, drive you home in the big picture of it. It's not just waiting things out. It's learning to be different. It's adopting new things. It's building skill sets. It's learning how to lull down our nervous system while at the same time gradually, slowly, safely pushing back against the symptoms. It's us learning how, like I said, to respond versus react, right? So I'm trying to, maybe some of you guys, this is like, yeah, we've heard it, Dave. And to others, this might be kind of new concepts of like, wow, I never really looked at it that way. I just saw me as sort of waiting out the storm here. And I'm here to tell you, don't just wait out the storm, right? Yeah, it's true. You could, we're minimal creatures. We're creatures of least, we want the path of least resistance, right? So we want the most gains with the least amount of effort. And it's true. If you just kind of lay around and wait for this thing to pass, you still have a really high chance of healing. Most people, if not all people, will still heal. The caveat there is, if you sit in the house long enough and you fester in this thing, yeah, you can get really depressed. You can develop agoraphobia and some of these other things. And now you got to go fight those things. You got to fight those battles, And if you're not careful, you'll start to call those things protracted benzo withdrawal symptoms, which in a way they kind of are. They manifested from benzos, but you see what I'm saying? They're now have become kind of their own little problems. So you don't want to just wait the storm out. You want to engage your healing, and you want to be different. You want to ensure, that when I get off this benzo, I'm staying off of it. Why? Because here's why. Because I have changed. I changed all of these things. I've learned all of these new things, and I do things differently now. So I digress, my friends. You're not having a setback. You're having a flare-up. That's my opinion. That's Coach Power's opinion. It's not a setback. It's a flare-up. And flare-ups are a much better place to be, because what goes up must come back down. All right, my friends, you are healing. You will heal. Keep your heads up. Keep your heart open. And I will see you in the next video. Godspeed, my friends.